David stood in the hospital parking lot, staring at his phone like it might give him answers he desperately needed. His hands were shaking, not from the cold October wind, but from the weight of a decision he was about to make. A decision that would either save his daughter's heart or make him look like the worst father in the world. Inside his car, a pink birthday invitation sat on the passenger seat. His daughter Lily had made it herself during one of her good days, when the treatment wasn't making her too tired to hold a crayon. The invitation was covered in wobbly stars and hearts, and in the center, she'd written in her 7-year-old handwriting, "Please come to my birthday party. Love, Lily. P.S. My mommy will be there this time." That last line felt like a knife in David's chest every time he read it. The truth was, Lily's mother wasn't coming. She hadn't been around for 6 months, not since the day the doctor said the word that changes everything: leukemia. David remembered that day perfectly. They'd all been sitting in the doctor's office, and when the diagnosis came, he'd watched his wife's face go completely blank. She didn't cry. She didn't ask questions. She just stared at the wall like she wasn't even in the room anymore. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Not just gone from the house, but gone from their lives. She'd moved halfway across the country, changed her number, and sent divorce papers through a lawyer. No explanation. No goodbye to Lily, just gone. David had tried to explain it to Lily at first. He really had. But how do you tell a 6-year-old that her mother chose to leave right when she needed her most? How do you explain that some people can't handle the hard parts of life, even when it means abandoning their own child? So he'd done what he thought was best. He'd told Lily that mommy was working far away, that she was very busy, that she would visit when she could. He'd been buying himself time, hoping that maybe his ex-wife would change her mind, would come back, would realize what she was throwing away. But she never did. And now Lily was getting sicker, and her questions were getting harder to dodge. "When is mommy coming home, Daddy? Why doesn't mommy call me anymore? Does mommy still love me?" That last question had broken something inside David that he didn't know how to fix. He'd held his daughter while she cried herself to sleep, and he'd made a promise to himself that night. Whatever it took, he would give Lily one happy birthday. One day where she didn't have to feel abandoned or different or scared. That's when the crazy idea had started forming in his mind. It was desperate. It was probably wrong, but he was out of options and out of time. 3 days ago, he'd been at the pharmacy picking up Lily's medication. The same pharmacy he always went to, where the staff knew him by name now because he was there so often. While waiting for the prescription, he'd noticed one of the pharmacists helping an elderly woman who was confused about her medications. The pharmacist had been so patient, explaining everything 3 times in different ways until the woman understood. She'd even walked the elderly lady to her car to make sure she was okay. Something about that moment had stuck with David. The kindness, the patience, the genuine care in the pharmacist's voice. He'd looked at her name tag, Rachel. Later that day, sitting in Lily's hospital room while she slept after treatment, David had found himself looking up the pharmacy's hours. He'd noticed that Rachel worked the closing shift, and before he could talk himself out of it, he'd made a plan that was either brilliant or insane. Probably insane. Now here he was, sitting in his car outside the pharmacy at 8:50 at night, waiting for Rachel to finish her shift. He felt like a creep. He felt desperate. He felt like a man who would do anything to see his daughter smile one more time. At 9:15, Rachel walked out of the pharmacy. She was carrying a large purse and wearing a blue jacket, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired, which made sense after a long shift. David took a deep breath and got out of his car. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. "Rachel, right? From the pharmacy?" She turned, and he could see the immediate wariness in her eyes. A strange man approaching her in a dark parking lot. He couldn't blame her for looking nervous. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said quickly, holding up his hands to show he wasn't a threat. "My name is David Chen. You've helped me with prescriptions for my daughter. Lily Chen. She's 7. She's been coming in for cancer treatment medications." Recognition flickered across Rachel's face. Oh yes, the little girl with the flower bandanas. How is she doing? The fact that Rachel remembered his daughter made David's throat tight. "That's actually what I need to talk to you about. I know this is going to sound absolutely crazy, and you have every right to call security or walk away or think I've lost my mind, but I'm desperate and I don't know where else to turn." Rachel's hand moved slightly toward her purse where David assumed she kept her phone. He couldn't blame her. He needed to say this fast before she ran. My daughter's birthday is in 1 week. She's been through 8 months of chemotherapy, and the doctors say the treatment is working, but emotionally she's struggling. Her mother left us when she got sick. Just packed up and left, and Lily doesn't understand why. She keeps asking about her mother, and I've been making excuses. But now her birthday is coming, and she's told everyone at the hospital that her mommy will be at her party. David's voice cracked on the last words. He took a breath and continued, I need someone to pretend to be my wife. Just for 1 week. Just for the birthday party and the days leading up to it. I know how this sounds. I know it's wrong to lie to her. But she's 7 years old and she's fighting for her life, and all she wants is a normal birthday with a mother who loves her. Even if it's pretend. Even if it's just for a few days. He stopped talking and waited. Rachel was staring at him like he'd just spoken in a foreign language. The silence stretched out so long that David was sure she was about to scream for help. You want me to pretend to be your wife? She finally said, her voice flat with disbelief. I'll pay you, David said quickly. Whatever you want. I have some savings. I can figure it out. I'm not asking you to do this for free. I'm asking you to help give a sick little girl one happy memory before... He couldn't finish that sentence. He couldn't say the words out loud. Before what? Rachel asked, and her voice had softened slightly. Before the world gets even harder for her, David said quietly. The doctors are optimistic about her treatment, but emotionally she's fading. She barely talks anymore. She doesn't draw or play like she used to. She just lies in bed asking when her mommy is coming home. The nurses say that emotional state can affect recovery. She needs something to look forward to. She needs to feel loved. Rachel shifted her purse to her other shoulder. She wasn't walking away, which David took as a good sign. Or maybe she was just too shocked to move. Why me? She asked. Because I watched you help that elderly woman the other day and you were so kind and patient. Because you remember my daughter even though you must see hundreds of patients. Because you have a warmth about you that reminds me of better times. And because I'm desperate and you're the only person I could think of who might possibly understand. Understand what? What it's like to care about someone who's suffering. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, This is the craziest thing anyone has ever asked me to do. I know. This is lying to a child. I know that too. This could backfire terribly. She could find out and be even more hurt. I've thought about that every day since I came up with this idea, David admitted. But she's already hurt. She's already been abandoned by the person who was supposed to love her most. I can't change that. But maybe I can give her 1 week where she feels like she has a complete family. 1 birthday where she's not the sick kid whose mom left. Is that so wrong? Rachel looked at him for a long time. David could see her thinking, weighing, trying to decide if he was dangerous or desperate or both. I need to think about this, she finally said. This isn't something I can decide right now in a parking lot at 9 o'clock at night. Of course, David said quickly. He pulled out his phone. Can I give you my number? You can call me tomorrow if you want, or never. I'll understand if you never call. I'm just asking you to think about it, please. Rachel hesitated, then pulled out her own phone. David gave her his number and she typed it in without saying whether she'd use it or not. What's your daughter's name again? She asked. Lily. She's 7. She loves butterflies and painting and making up silly songs. She's the bravest person I've ever met and she deserves to have one happy birthday. Rachel nodded slowly, then turned toward her car. She'd taken 3 steps when she stopped and looked back at him. If I were to even consider this, she said carefully, I'd need to meet her first. Before I make any decision, I'd need to see if this is something I could actually do without making things worse. Hope bloomed in David's chest so fast it almost hurt. Yes, absolutely, whenever you want. I'll call you tomorrow, Rachel said. Maybe, I don't know. I need to think. Thank you for even considering it, David said. That's more than I had any right to ask for. Rachel got in her car without responding. David watched her drive away, then sat back down in his own car and put his head in his hands. He'd done it. He'd actually asked a complete stranger to pretend to be his wife. And so, hope bloomed in David's chest so fast it almost hurt. Yes, absolutely, whenever you want. I'll call you tomorrow, Rachel said. Maybe, I don't know. I need to think. Thank you for even considering it, David said. That's more than I had any right to ask for. Rachel got in her car without responding. David watched her drive away, then sat back down in his own car and put his head in his hands. He'd done it. He'd actually asked a complete stranger to pretend to be his wife, and she hadn't immediately called the police. Now he just had to wait and see if she would call. And if she did call, he had to hope that this crazy plan wouldn't blow up in his face and hurt Lily even more. But as he drove home, where his mother was watching Lily for the evening, David allowed himself a tiny bit of hope. For the first time in months, there was a possibility of giving his daughter something she desperately wanted. Even if it was built on a lie, wasn't a happy child worth it? Wasn't 1 week of joy better than months of sadness? David didn't have the answers to those questions. He only knew that he would do anything, absolutely anything, to see his daughter smile again, and if that made him a bad person, then so be it. Being a good father sometimes meant making impossible choices. He just hoped that Rachel would understand that when she made her decision. The next morning would tell him everything he needed to know. Either his phone would ring or it wouldn't. Either a stranger would show him unexpected kindness, or he'd have to find another way to keep the promise he'd made to Lily. All he could do now was wait and hope that somewhere in this harsh world, there was still enough compassion left for one desperate father and his sick little girl. Rachel didn't sleep at all that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation in the parking lot over and over in her mind. A stranger had asked her to pretend to be his wife, to lie to a dying child. No, not dying. He'd said the treatment was working. But still, a very sick child who'd been abandoned by her mother. What kind of person asks a stranger to do something like that? More importantly, what kind of person actually considers saying yes? Rachel rolled over and looked at her phone on the nightstand. She'd saved David's number but hadn't labeled it. Just a string of digits that represented an impossible decision. She got up and made tea even though it was 3 a.m. Her apartment was quiet and neat, everything in its place. That's how she liked her life now. Organized, predictable, safe. No surprises, no chaos, no heartbreak. It had been that way for 5 years, ever since her divorce. And it had been even longer since she'd allowed herself to think about the other loss. The one that still woke her up sometimes with tears on her face. Her younger sister Amy had been 9 when she died. 12 years ago now, but some pain doesn't fade with time. Amy had fought leukemia for 2 years. And Rachel had been there for every treatment, every hospital stay, every terrible moment. She'd been 19, home from college, trying to be strong for her parents and her baby sister. She remembered Amy's last birthday. Number 9. They'd celebrated it in the hospital because Amy was too weak to go home. Their mother had brought cupcakes and Amy had been so excited even though she could barely sit up. She'd made one wish before blowing out the candles, and later, when everyone else had left, she'd whispered it to Rachel. I wished for one more normal day. Just one day where I'm not sick and we can do normal things like normal sisters. Amy died 3 weeks later. The wish never came true. Rachel wiped her eyes and took a sip of tea. She hadn't thought about that birthday in years. She'd locked those memories away in a box marked too painful to open. But this stranger in the parking lot had somehow found the key. His daughter was 7, 2 years younger than Amy had been, and she was asking for something simple. Not a cure, not a miracle. Just a mother at her birthday party. Just one day of feeling normal. Rachel picked up her phone and looked at the number again. This was insane. She should delete it and forget this conversation ever happened. She had her own life, her own carefully constructed peace. Getting involved in someone else's tragedy was asking for heartbreak. But she couldn't stop thinking about the look in David's eyes. The desperation of a parent who would do anything, even something crazy and wrong, to help his child. She'd seen that same look in her own parents' eyes 12 years ago. At 6 a.m, Rachel finally made a decision. She picked up her phone and typed a message before she could change her mind. I'll meet your daughter. That's all I'm promising. Tomorrow after my shift. Let me know when and where. She hit send and immediately wanted to take it back. But it was done. Her phone buzzed 30 seconds later. Thank you. Thank you so much. Tomorrow at 4 p.m., we can meet at the Children's Hospital cafeteria. Lily will be there for her weekly checkup. Rachel stared at the message. The Children's Hospital, of course. She'd have to go back to that place she'd been avoiding for over a decade. The place that smelled like antiseptic and fear and broken hearts. Okay, she typed back. I'll be there. She didn't sleep the rest of that night either. The next day at work dragged on forever. Rachel made mistakes she never made. She mixed up 2 prescriptions and had to redo them. She dropped a bottle of pills and they scattered across the floor. Her coworker kept asking if she was okay, and Rachel kept lying and saying she was fine. At 3:30, she changed out of her work clothes in the pharmacy bathroom and put on jeans and a sweater. Something casual, something that wouldn't scare a child. She looked at herself in the mirror and wondered what she was doing. This was crazy. She should call David and cancel. She should run in the opposite direction. Instead, she got in her car and drove to the children's hospital. The building looked different than she remembered, but the feeling was the same, that heavy weight in the air, the sense that too many sad stories were happening inside those walls. Rachel sat in her car for 5 minutes trying to gather courage. Her phone buzzed. David. We're in the cafeteria. Lily is wearing a yellow bandana with butterflies on it. Take your time. No pressure. Rachel took a deep breath and got out of the car. The cafeteria was on the second floor. Rachel rode the elevator with a tired-looking doctor and a woman carrying flowers. When the doors opened, she stepped out into a hallway covered with children's artwork. Colorful paintings of rainbows and families and hope. The cafeteria was half full. Rachel spotted them immediately. A man sitting at a corner table with a little girl who was coloring in a book. The girl's head was covered with a bright yellow bandana, and even from across the room, Rachel could see how thin she was. David saw her and stood up. He looked different in the daylight, younger than she'd thought, maybe 35. He had dark circles under his eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. He waved her over, and Rachel's feet moved forward even though her brain was screaming at her to leave. Rachel, David said quietly when she reached the table. Thank you for coming. This is Lily. The little girl looked up from her coloring book, and Rachel felt her heart crack open. Lily had huge brown eyes and a too thin face. She was pale and there were shadows under her eyes. But when she smiled at Rachel, it was like sunshine breaking through clouds. Hi, Lily said shyly. Are you my daddy's friend? Rachel sat down across from her, not trusting her voice for a moment. Hi, Lily. Yes, I'm your daddy's friend. What are you coloring? A butterfly garden, Lily said, showing her the page. It was half finished, with careful strokes of purple and pink. Butterflies are my favorite because they transform. That means they change into something beautiful. My nurse told me that's what I'm doing too. Transforming. Rachel had to look away for a second. This child, this brave, wise little child. That's a beautiful way to think about it, Rachel said when she could speak again. Can I color with you? Lily's face lit up. Really? You want to color with me? If that's okay with you. Lily pushed the coloring book toward her and offered a green crayon. You can do the leaves. I'm not very good at staying in the lines anymore. My hands shake sometimes from the medicine. Rachel took the crayon and started coloring carefully. David sat down beside them, watching quietly. For a few minutes, they just colored together. Lily hummed a little tune under her breath, something made up and cheerful. My birthday is in 5 days, Lily said suddenly. I'm going to be 8 years old. That's pretty old, right? That's very old, Rachel agreed, smiling. What do you want for your birthday? Lily was quiet for a moment, focusing on her coloring. Then she said in a voice so soft Rachel almost missed it, I want my mommy to come home. The crayon in Rachel's hand froze. She looked at David, who was staring at the table like he wanted to disappear into it. My mommy is working far away, Lily continued, still coloring. But Daddy says maybe she can come for my birthday. Do you think she will? Rachel didn't know what to say. How do you answer a question like that? How do you look at a child's hopeful face and not promise them everything they want? I think, Rachel said carefully, that anyone would be lucky to spend your birthday with you. You seem like a very special girl. Lily beamed at her. You're nice. I like you. Do you have kids? No, I don't. Do you want kids? Lily? David said gently. That's a personal question. It's okay, Rachel said. She looked at Lily's curious face and decided to tell the truth. I had a little sister once. She would have been about your age now. She loved butterflies too. Would have been? Lily asked, and Rachel saw understanding dawn in those two wise eyes. Did she get sick like me? Yes, a long time ago. Did she die? Rachel heard David make a small sound, but she kept her eyes on Lily. Yes, she did. Lily nodded slowly, like this made sense to her. Like she'd already thought about these things more than any child should have to. Were you with her? At the end? I was, every single day. That's good, Lily said. I think that's important. Being with people. My mommy wasn't with me when I got sick. She left. Daddy doesn't like to talk about it, but I know. I'm not a baby. Rachel looked at David, whose face had gone pale. Lily kept talking, her voice matter-of-fact. Sometimes I get sad about it, but my nurse says some people can't be strong during hard times. She says it's not my fault. Do you think it's my fault? No, Rachel said firmly, reaching across the table to take Lily's small hand. It's absolutely not your fault. Sometimes adults make choices that hurt people they love, and it's never the child's fault. Never. Lily squeezed her hand. Her grip was weak but determined. You're really nice. I wish you could come to my birthday party. Rachel felt tears pressing at the back of her eyes. She looked at David, then back at Lily. This child who'd been through so much. This father who was trying so hard to hold everything together. This impossible situation that she'd walked into. What if I did come to your birthday party? Rachel heard herself say. Would you like that? Lily's whole face transformed. Really, you'd really come? If your daddy says it's okay, then yes. Daddy, can she come, please? David was looking at Rachel with an expression she couldn't quite read. Gratitude, yes, but also something else. Relief, maybe, or fear, or hope. If Rachel wants to come, then of course she can, David said quietly. They stayed in the cafeteria for another hour. Lily told Rachel about her favorite nurse, about the art therapy classes at the hospital, about a friend she'd made who was also sick. She talked about everything except her mother, and Rachel was grateful for that. When it was time for Lily's checkup, David walked Rachel to the elevator while his mother took Lily to the appointment. Thank you, he said. I know this is asking too much, but I'll do it, Rachel interrupted. I'll come to her birthday party, and if you want, I'll spend some time with her before then too, just a few days, to make it feel more real. David looked like he might cry. Why? Why would you do this for strangers? Rachel thought about Amy, about wishes that didn't come true, about how she'd give anything to go back and give her sister one normal day. Because maybe I can give her something I couldn't give my sister. Rachel said simply, a wish that comes true. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet. This might be a terrible idea. We might mess everything up. Or we might give a little girl one happy memory, David said. Rachel nodded. We need rules, clear boundaries, and we need to talk about what happens after the birthday. She can't get attached to me only to lose another person. I know. I've thought about that. We'll figure it out together. The elevator doors opened. Rachel stepped inside and turned to face him. Send me details about your wife. Everything Lily might remember. I need to study. She doesn't remember much, David said. The treatment has affected her memory. She mainly remembers feelings. That she had a mother who she loved. The elevator doors started to close. Rachel put her hand out to stop them. One more thing, she said. After this week is over, we need to help her understand the truth. Gently but honestly. She deserves that. David nodded. I agree. The doors closed and Rachel rode down to the parking lot. When she got to her car, she sat behind the wheel and let herself cry. For Amy. For Lily. For all the children who fought battles they shouldn't have to fight. Then she wiped her tears, started her car, and drove home to her quiet, safe apartment. In 5 days, she would pretend to be someone's wife. Someone's mother. She would step into a role she'd never wanted and give a performance for an audience of one sick little girl. And somehow, she would have to figure out how to protect her own heart while trying to heal someone else's. The first time Rachel showed up at David's apartment, she almost turned around and left 3 times before she finally knocked on the door. It was 2 days before Lily's birthday, and they'd agreed that Rachel should spend some time with them beforehand, so it wouldn't feel so sudden to Lily. Make it seem natural, David had said on the phone. Like they were old friends reconnecting. Rachel had no idea how to make any of this feel natural. David answered the door looking exhausted. He was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt with a coffee stain on it. His hair was messy and he had that glazed look of someone who'd been up all night. Sorry, he said, noticing her staring. Lily had a rough night. The medication makes her nauseous sometimes and she couldn't sleep. We were up until about 5 in the morning. Is she okay? Rachel asked, stepping inside. The apartment was small but clean, with toys tucked neatly into bins and children's drawings covering the refrigerator. She's sleeping now. My mother just left. She helps out during the day when I have to work. David ran his hand through his hair. Can I get you some coffee? I made a fresh pot. I basically live on coffee these days. Sure, Rachel said, even though her stomach was already in knots. They sat at the small kitchen table, and David pulled out a folder. I wrote down everything I could think of about my ex-wife. Her favorite color was blue. She liked classical music. She worked as a graphic designer. She had a small birthmark on her left shoulder. She always wore the specific perfume that smelled like roses. Rachel looked at the papers filled with David's handwriting, details about a woman who'd abandoned her family. It felt wrong somehow, studying her like this. The thing is, David continued, Lily doesn't remember most of this. The treatment has affected her memory in weird ways. She remembers big feelings but not specific details. She knows she had a mother who she loved, but she can't really picture her face anymore. We didn't have many photos, and after Jennifer left, I put them away because looking at them made Lily cry. So I'm not really pretending to be Jennifer, Rachel said slowly. I'm pretending to be the idea of a mother. I guess so. David looked down at his coffee. Is that worse? I can't tell anymore if any of this is right or wrong. I just know my daughter asks for her mother every single day, and I'm tired of watching her heart break. Before Rachel could respond, they heard a small voice from the hallway. Daddy? Lily appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a blanket covered with butterflies. She looked tiny and fragile, her yellow bandana slightly crooked on her head. When she saw Rachel, her eyes widened. You came back, Lily said, and she sounded so surprised that Rachel's heart hurt. Of course I came back, Rachel said, standing up. I promised I'd come to your birthday party, remember? I thought I'd visit before then too, if that's okay with you. Lily shuffled over, dragging her blanket behind her. She looked up at Rachel with those huge brown eyes. Are you going to be my daddy's friend? Like a real friend who comes over a lot? Rachel glanced at David, who gave her a small nod. This was it. This was where they started the lie. I'd like to be, Rachel said carefully. Would that be okay with you? Lily nodded, then suddenly wrapped her arms around Rachel's waist. The hug was unexpected and tight, and Rachel could feel how thin the child was through the blanket. She looked at David over Lily's head, panicked, not knowing what to do. David mouthed, hug her back, and Rachel slowly put her arms around Lily's small shoulders. You smell nice, Lily mumbled into Rachel's sweater. Like vanilla cookies. Thank you, Rachel said, her voice catching. How are you feeling, sweetheart? Tired and my tummy hurts, but it always hurts after treatment day. Lily pulled back and looked up at Rachel. Do you want to see what I'm making for my birthday party? I'd love to. Lily took Rachel's hand and led her to the living room where art supplies were spread across the coffee table. There were markers, construction paper, glitter, and stickers everywhere. Lily had been making a banner that said, Happy Birthday to me in crooked letters. I'm going to hang it up, Lily explained. And we're going to have chocolate cake because that's my favorite. And Daddy says I can invite my friend Ben from the hospital, and my nurse Katie and my grandma, and now you too. Rachel sat down on the floor next to the coffee table. This banner is beautiful. Can I help you with it? Really? Lily's whole face lit up. You want to help? Absolutely. For the next hour, they worked on the banner together. Lily showed Rachel how she wanted each letter decorated, and Rachel carefully glued on glitter while Lily added stickers. David watched from the kitchen, pretending to clean but really just staring at them. My mommy used to do art projects with me, Lily said suddenly, her voice quiet. At least I think she did. I can't really remember. Do you think that's bad? That I can't remember her face anymore? Rachel's hand stilled on the glitter bottle. No, sweetie. That's not bad. Our brains sometimes protect us by making hard memories fuzzy. It doesn't mean you didn't love her or that she wasn't important. I wish I could remember better, Lily said. Sometimes I try really hard to picture her, but it's like looking through foggy glass. I see shapes, but not details. Rachel looked at this child who was dealing with so much more than any 7-year-old should have to deal with. Loss and sickness and confusion and fear. You know what I think? Rachel said. I think the feeling of being loved is more important than remembering exactly what someone looked like. And I can tell your daddy loves you very, very much. Lily nodded. He does. He's always here. He never leaves me, even when I'm sick and gross and throwing up. He holds my hand during the scary treatments and sings to me when I can't sleep. That's what real love looks like, Rachel said. They finished the banner and hung it up in the living room. Lily stepped back to admire it, swaying slightly on her feet. David was there immediately, steadying her. Time for rest. Bug, he said gently. But Rachel just got here, Lily protested, even as her eyes drooped with exhaustion. Rachel can stay while you rest, David said, looking at Rachel questioningly. Of course, Rachel said. I'm not going anywhere. David carried Lily to her bedroom and Rachel could hear him tucking her in, his voice soft as he talked to her. When he came back, his eyes were red. She doesn't usually open up like that, he said, sitting heavily on the couch. About her mother, I mean. She barely talks about it with me anymore. Maybe she needed someone outside the situation, Rachel suggested, someone who isn't as close to the hurt. They sat in silence for a moment. Rachel looked around the apartment, really seeing it now. Everything was organized for Lily's care. Medications lined up on a shelf with a schedule chart. A calendar on the wall with doctor's appointments marked in red. A bin of toys that looked like they were rotated regularly to keep things interesting. You're doing a good job, Rachel said, in case nobody's told you that recently. David laughed, but it sounded painful. Most days I feel like I'm failing. Like I'm not enough. One parent instead of two. Working part-time so I can take her to appointments. Living in this tiny apartment because medical bills eat everything. Sometimes I wonder if she'd be better off if... He stopped himself. Don't, Rachel said firmly. Don't finish that sentence. She wouldn't be better off. She needs you and you're here and that's everything. But I can't give her what she wants most. I can't bring her mother back. No, Rachel agreed. But you're giving her something better. You're showing her what unconditional love actually looks like. You're teaching her that the people who stay matter more than the people who leave. David looked at her for a long moment. Can I ask you something? Why are you really doing this? And don't say it's because of your sister. I mean, that's part of it, I know. But there's something else, isn't there? Rachel was quiet. She hadn't expected him to ask, and she wasn't sure she wanted to answer. But sitting in this small apartment, in this space filled with so much love and pain, lying seemed wrong. When my sister died, she said slowly, I was 19. I watched my parents fall apart. I watched them blame themselves, blame each other, blame the doctors, blame God. Their marriage didn't survive it. They divorced 2 years after Amy died. I'm sorry, David said. The thing is, I realized something watching them. They loved Amy so much. They did everything right. They were there for every treatment, every hospital stay, every terrible moment. But in the end, love wasn't enough to save her. And that broke them. Rachel paused, gathering her thoughts. After that, I built this wall around myself. I told myself I'd never let anyone in that deep again. I'd never care that much. I'd never risk that kind of pain. I got married to someone safe, someone I liked but didn't love with my whole heart. And even that fell apart. So why break the wall now? David asked gently. Because I'm tired, Rachel admitted. I'm tired of being safe and protected and alone. And maybe because I see this little girl who's been abandoned by someone who should have loved her. And I think maybe I can show her that not everyone leaves, that sometimes strangers can care more than family. That love doesn't always have to end in loss. She wiped her eyes, embarrassed. Sorry, that was probably too much. No, David said. It wasn't. They talked for another hour, their voices low so they wouldn't wake Lily. David told her about his marriage, about how he'd met Jennifer in college, how she'd been vibrant and creative and full of life until the diagnosis, how she'd just shut down like a light switching off. I was angry at first, he said. Furious. How could she leave her sick child? What kind of person does that? But then I realized she was sick too, just in a different way. She couldn't handle it. Some people just can't. That doesn't make it okay, Rachel said. No, David agreed. But it helps me understand. And more importantly, it helps me explain it to Lily someday when she's old enough to really understand. Lily appeared in the doorway again, rubbing her eyes. I can't sleep. My brain won't turn off. Come here, Bug, David said, and she climbed onto the couch between them. Will you tell me a story? Lily asked, looking at Rachel. What kind of story? A happy one. About butterflies. Rachel thought for a moment, then began. Once upon a time there was a little caterpillar who was afraid to build her cocoon. She'd seen other caterpillars go into their cocoons and not come out the same. She was scared of changing. Lily snuggled closer, listening. But then she met a wise old butterfly who told her something important. The butterfly said, change is scary, but it's also beautiful. And sometimes the scariest changes lead to the most amazing transformations. Did the caterpillar build her cocoon? Lily asked. She did. And you know what happened? She became a butterfly? She became the most beautiful butterfly in the garden, and she realized that even though she was different than before, she was still herself. Just a new version, a stronger version. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm like the caterpillar, aren't I? The treatment is my cocoon." "You're exactly like the caterpillar," Rachel said. "You're transforming into something beautiful and strong." "And you're like the wise butterfly," Lily said, "teaching me not to be scared." Rachel felt tears prick her eyes again. This child, this impossibly wise, brave child. Lily yawned and leaned her head against Rachel's shoulder. "I'm glad you came back. I was worried you wouldn't. I'll always come back when I say I will." Rachel promised and hoped it was a promise she could keep. David met her eyes over Lily's head. In that look was gratitude, yes, but also something more. A shared understanding, a recognition that they were both in this now, both committed to giving this child whatever happiness they could manage, even if it was built on a lie. Even if it would all fall apart eventually, right now in this moment Lily was content. She was loved. She wasn't alone. And maybe, Rachel thought as she stroked Lily's hair, maybe that was enough. Maybe perfect truth wasn't as important as imperfect love. She stayed until Lily fell asleep again, her small body warm and trusting against Rachel's side. And when she finally left that evening, walking to her car in the fading light, Rachel realized something had shifted inside her. The wall she'd built around her heart had a crack in it, and through that crack, light was starting to seep in. The morning of Lily's birthday started with rain. Rachel woke up early, staring at the gray sky through her bedroom window, and wondered if it was some kind of sign. She'd barely slept, her mind racing through everything that could go wrong today. What if Lily figured out the truth? What if this whole thing backfired and hurt her even more? What if Rachel couldn't pull this off? Her phone buzzed with a text from David. Lily woke up asking if you're really coming. "She's nervous you'll change your mind. Can you come a little early? Maybe around 10? Rachel looked at the clock. It was 7:30. She typed back quickly, "I'll be there at 10. I promise." She got up and went to her closet, staring at her clothes like they might tell her what a fake mother should wear to her pretend daughter's birthday party. Finally, she settled on jeans and a soft blue sweater. Casual, approachable, not trying too hard. In her car was a gift she'd spent 2 days choosing, a art set with watercolors, brushes, and special paper. And tucked inside was something else. A small photo album with blank pages, and on the first page she'd written, "For Lily's new memories." The drive to David's apartment felt both too long and too short. Rachel's hands were shaking on the steering wheel. She'd done hard things before. She'd sat with her sister through countless treatments. She'd survived a divorce. She'd rebuilt her life from nothing. But somehow this felt bigger, more important, more terrifying. When she knocked on the door, it flew open immediately. Lily stood there in a purple dress with sparkles on it, her yellow butterfly bandana perfectly positioned. Her face was pale, and Rachel could see the exhaustion in her eyes. But she was smiling so big it looked like her face might split in half.